Okay, let's continue. We are on Gimel. We are going to do today Gimel Amud Beis, but we are on Gimel Amud Aleph, right on the bottom, 2 lines from the end of the page. Tanu Rabbanan by the 2 dots. Tanu Rabbanan. We mentioned yesterday that there was a whole story with Eliyahu HaNavi, and that he was standing outside the cave, and we're going to go, and he said that you're not supposed to go into a chorva, a broken down building. So we're going to discuss exactly why that is. Why one should not go into a broken down building or an abandoned building. For 3 reasons a person shouldn't go into a broken building. Mipnei chashad. One reason is chashad, that someone's going to go in and do something inappropriate with a woman. Mipnei hamafo'eles. And another reason is because it's dangerous, it might fall. It's not sturdy. And because of the shadim, because of dangerous things in there. Now let's explain all 3 reasons. Mipnei chashad. Why is it a concern that someone's going to go in and do something inappropriate? Meaning, why are all 3 reasons necessary? Just tell me, right, that one can't go into chorva because it might break down. Who cares about the other 2 reasons? Right? Why do we need to tell you about chashad? Just tell me it's going to fall down. Don't tell me anything else. So my answer is bachadati, because it's a new chorva, and if it's a new chorva, you're not worried it's going to fall down. So therefore, you need the reason of chashad. Fine. So you don't need. So the reason of it falling doesn't apply still. That's not a good standalone answer. But mazikin is, right? Don't just say the reason you can't go into a chorva is because there's dangerous things there. Gemara says no, betray. They're talking about a case where there's 2 people. You betray. So they're talking about a case where there's 2 people and there's no shadim if 2 people are around. Gemara says betray. If there's 2 people, chashad nami leka. Right? If there's 2 people, then you're not worried about chashad either, because there's no isser yichud, right? 2 men and 1 woman is not an isser yichud. If it's 1 man going in with 1 woman, then we have an isser yichud, so we have a chashad, they're going to do something. But if it's 2 men and 1 woman, there's no chashad either. So what are you going to? So if it's the case of 2, there's no chashad, there's no chashash of shadim, but there's no chashash of chashad either. Gemara says no, betray upriti. It's 2 people that aren't kosher. So if it's 2 people that aren't kosher, even with 1 woman, we're still going to be worried that they're going to do something. Why? And then so let's go to the second reason. So that's why we need chashad. Now, why do we need the reason about the broken down building? But typically mishum chashad, right? Typically mishum chashad umazikin. Let's just learn it from those 2 reasons. Get rid of the concern it might fall, and just bring me the 2 reasons about chashad umazikin. So no, betray uvikshari. Let's say it's 2 kosher people. So chashad is still a concern. And it's 2 people. So the fact that it's 2 people means that the shadim can't attack anymore. That's when we need mufo'elis. That's when the only thing that would apply here is the only concern that would apply here is the concern of the building falling. What about, why do we need mazikin? Let's just use the other 2. So my answer is bechorva b'chaditi. It's a new chorva. Therefore, we're not worried about it falling. Ubetray vikashri, and it's 2 kosher people, right? Okay, so the obvious question: Ibetray, if it's 2 people, mazikinami leka, right? So great, it's 2 people. But if it's 2 people, then mazikin, we just said by 2 people, there's no concern of shadim either. So why is that proof to me a case where we would need only mazikin and not the other 2? Gemara says bim kaiman chayshinan. It's a place that we're more worried that the presence of shadim is more present. It's their place. Bim kaiman, it's their place, the place where they rest. Bibas ema, or another reason we need mazikin la'ilam bechad. Really, it's 1 person. Ubechor v'chadati. Ubechor v'chadati dikai, and we're talking about a new chorva. But bedabra, but we're talking about a case where it's in the field. The chorva is in the field. The asim mishum chashad, like there's no chashash of chashad. Why not? Women are not found in the fields generally, so there's no concern of chashad, but you'll still have the concern of mazikin because it's only 1 person, right? So you won't have the concern of it falling because it's a new building. You won't have the concern of chashad because it's in the field and women aren't in the fields. But you'll still have the concern of mazikin because it's only 1 person. Okay, Tanu Rabbanan. Arba mishmarais. Have Laila. So we said before that there's a machlekes. How many portions the night is split up into? Is it split up into 4 portions? Four portions of 3 hours? Or is it 3 portions of 4 hours? So here's the machlekes. So Rabbi Nassan says, Tanu Rabbanan Arba Mishmaros Have Laila. Rabbi Nassan says it's four portions. Divrei Rebbe, I'm sorry. Divrei Rebbe. Reb Nosson Omer Shalosh. Reb Nosson says it's 3 portions. My time is Reb Nosson. Why does Reb Nosson, on what basis does Reb Nosson hold that it's 3 portions? Dichsiv, Vayava Gideon came, Umeya Ish and 100 men, Asher Oisei Bekotza Machne, Rosh HaAshmarais. So, Ashmarais seems to denote hatichayna, that there's a middle one, right? Tana ein tichayna el sheyesh lefanah v'la'achara. Tichayna means middle, right? So a middle one has to have one before and one after, but only one before and one after. Middle has to be in an odd number. 4 is not an odd number. 3 is an odd number. So therefore, since you have a middle one, that implies that there is one before and one after, and there's a middle, which can only be 3. Verebi. So now we're going to have a little back and forth and say, why don't you agree with his reason? Why don't you agree with his reason? So now Rabbi Nosson is give his reason as to why he thinks 3. Because there's a middle one and you have 2 sandwiching it. Now, why doesn't Rabbi hold of that? Mighty chayna. So what does he do with the fact that there's a middle one and that you're really sandwiched in between? Mighty chayna achas. Menati chayna shabati chaynis. Really he holds it's the middle of the middle. So there could be 2 middles, right? That's not really a stira. You could say there's 2 middles and there's 4. For Reb Nosson, why doesn't he say that there's a middle of a middle? Why does he say there's only 1 middle instead of there being 2 middles, right? If a family has 8 children, there's 2 middle children. So too here, you could have 2 middle times. So for Reb Nosson, why doesn't he hold to that? Because miksiv tichayna to tichayna. What are you talking about, Rebbe? Reb Nosson saying, what are you talking about? It says the middle. It doesn't say the middle of the middle. It says the middle. There's only 1 middle, and that's it. Tichayna ksiv. It says tichayna. Okay. So my time of the Rebbe. What's the reason that Rebbe still holds of the middle, even though it's not written that way in the pasuk? Amar Rav Zreik, Amar Rami, Rishu ben Levi, Kasav Echad Omer, Chatzos. We're talking about David Mel. Chatzos Laila Akum Lahaydis L'Chal Al Mishpatei Tzidkecha. At midnight, David Melch would get up to thank Hashem because of Echad Omer Kadmu Eini Ashmarais. Right. So there were Ashmarais, which is plural. Haketzad Arba Mishmarais Havalayla. Since it was 2 Ashmarais before and after. So that must be that there's 4 split of the night, meaning this is a little, hang on here. Basically, David Melch got up in the middle of the night. And we see it was sandwiched in between 2 sets of Ashmaris, i.e. 2 and 2, which is 4. So because those 2 psukim are next to each other, so we see there must be 4, right? Because he got up in the middle of the night, exactly in the middle of the night, 2 before, 2 after, that's 4. Reb Nosson Savala, Rabbi Yeshua, and Reb Nosson holds like Rabbi Yeshua. So why doesn't Reb Nosson hold like this whole thing, that he got up in the middle of the night and it's sandwiched in between 2 pairs? The answer is because he holds like Reb Yeshua. The Tanan Reb Yeshua Aimer at shalosh shais until 3 hours shekein derech malachim lamed b'shalosh shais. That malachim, kings, would get up in the 3rd hour of the day, which is a little later than normal people because they're kings. They can do that. Shis delaila, 6 hours at night, betarti diyamama, and 2 during the day. So it doesn't mean that it's exact that David Melch got up in the middle of the night and there were 2 before and 2 after. It means he got up 2 Ashmaros after the kings got up, or 2 Ashmaros before the kings got up, right? Even though he was a king, he got up earlier than most other kings. Avloshtei Mishmaros, which is 2 Mishmaros, because it's 6 at nighttime, 2 during the daytime. Rav Ashi Amar Mishmaro Palga, Nami Mishmaros Karolei. Rav Ashi suggests a different answer. He says no, because it could be that David Melch had 2 sets of Ashmaros sandwiched in between, but it was really just 1.5. It wasn't really 2 and 2. It was 1.5 and 1.5, which would be 3. So it boils down to, do you look at it as 2 and 2, and David Melch got up in the middle of those 2, or do you look at it 1.5 and 1.5, and David Melch got up in the middle of those 1.5s? That would be the difference between 3 and 4. It's interesting. The Minchas Yitzchak actually says that one can be Yotzei Lechem Mishnah on Shabbos using 1.5 loaves of bread. It's a rye from this Gemara. You see, 1.5 is considered like 2. We don't hold like that, obviously. Okay, V'amar Rabbi Zreika, Amar Rabbi Ami, Amar Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi, something unrelated. Ein Omer b'fnei meis el dvarav shel meis. One can only talk matters in front of a dead person. One can only talk matters of a dead person. Amar Rabbi Ava bar Kahana, le Amar nel b'divrei Torah. Rabbi Kahana says, no, we're only talking about divrei Torah, meaning one cannot say divrei Torah in front of a mace because he's going to get jealous. That's why one has to tuck his tzitzis in if he goes to a levaya, because he doesn't want the mace to get jealous. Look, he'd say, I could do mitzvahs, you can't. No, we don't want him to get jealous. But just to talk about anything, talk about the news, that's not a problem because the mace is not going to get jealous of that, right? No, we said even divrei Torah v'kolshkein mil d'alma. If you can't talk about divrei Torah in front of a mace, for sure you can't talk about stam things in front of a mace. Obviously, when someone gets up to the next world, they're not going to care about, idle chatter anymore. They care about mitzvahs and schar, so that's what they're going to get jealous about. Did David because the Gemara asks, did David really get up in the middle of the night? He got up in the beginning of the night. So he says he got up at the neshef. And how do we know that neshef is referring to the beginning of the night? By the evening time, so that's the beginning of the nighttime, when it gets dark. So therefore we know David Melech got up in the beginning of the night, not the middle of the night. So why does it say get up in the middle of the night? So David he never went to sleep to begin with, so when Chatzais came, he was already up. When did he sleep? I'm not sure, but he was already up, so therefore it says he never had to get up at Chatzais because he didn't go to sleep in the first place. Until Chatzais, he was, drowsing off. It's sort of like the twilight, zone of sleeping, where he's like sort of sleeping, sort of not, like a horse doesn't really fully sleep. In fact, David HaMelech was Rashi says here, he was still learning when he was sleeping. So he was never really sleeping, always learning. But at Chatzais time, he got up like a lion. Ravashi Amar Ad Chatzais Laila hu Isaac b'divrei Torah. That until Chatzais he was learning Torah. But from this time on, Bashir through Yishbachas after Chatzais, he would praise Hashem. V'neshef or tehu. And neshef is so Gemara asks, v'neshef or tehu? Neshef is really referring to the nighttime. Haneshef tzafrehu, but neshef is really referring to the morning time. How do we know that? Because the pasuk says, "Vayakim David meha neshef yada erev." Right? The ad ha'erev is until the nighttime, so you wouldn't say from nighttime until the nighttime, right? The fact that it precedes the words ad ha'erev means that neshef must mean morning time. L'macharasam. So it says, "My love mitzafra va'ad leila." Must be that it's from that neshev ad ha'erev is another way of saying morning until night. Gemara says lie. May orta v'ad orta. Really, neshev can still be nighttime, and it's just saying to night, 24-hour period. Ihachi lichtav me'ad neshev yad neshev imei ad ha'erev. Why isn't the lashon consistent then? It should be the same thing. Neshev yad neshev. If you're trying to say the same word anyway, translates the same way, then just say the same exact word. It's a versatile word. It can be used in two ways. It can be used as nighttime or it can be used as daytime, depending on how you look at it. And now, Frek the Gemara. How did David know? Just stop. How did he know when midnight was? Okay, what was his symbol for this? Amos, where do we know? And not only that, where do we know that David even knew when midnight was? David HaMelech knew when midnight was? Moshe Rabbeinu himself didn't know when midnight was. How do we know Moshe Rabbeinu didn't know when midnight was? The pasuk says like the midnight of the day, this is like the middle of the night, which is this is coming from Hashem. He said this. I take you from Egypt. So my kechatzos, what does it mean? Kechatzos, like the midnight. Ilema de amarle kocha barichu kechatzos. If you want to say Hashem is saying like chatzos, Hashem doesn't know when chatzos is. He's saying, like chatzos, like that time. What does that mean? Hashem knows exactly when chatzos is, right? So you can't tell me that Hashem has a suffix as to when the middle of the night is. El da amar must be el da amarle bichatzos. Must be that Hashem told Moshe Rabbeinu bichatzos, the exact moment. Bichatzos. Tell them to get up at that exact time. Va'asaiyu, but then Moshe Rabbeinu, right? When he wrote the Torah, va'amar kichatzos, he said kichatzos, because Hashem knew when chatzos was. Must be Moshe Rabbeinu was the one that didn't know when chatzos was, because that's how he transcribed it. So Alma misfekalei. So we see that Moshe Rabbeinu did not in fact know when chatzos was. V'David haviyada, and you're going to tell me that David knew? How's that possible that David knew and Moshe Rabbeinu didn't? So our answer is David Simna Havale. We're going to have a few answers. This is the first one, and this will take us to the end of today's. David Simna Hav. He had a simon, and very famously, this is a very famous simon that a lot of people know about. Amar of Acha Bar Bizna Amar of Shimon Chasida Kinor Hayatoloi Lamala B'mitasai. There was a harp that would hang above his bed. Shal David V'Kivin Shegiach Atzais Alayla. And when the middle of the night came, Baruach Tzefainis, a northern wind came. V'Nai Sheves by Umenagain Alav. And it would blow and it would play the harp. And And immediately David Melech would get up and learn Torah until Amud Shachar. Kivan shenichnesu, Kivan she'ala Amud Shachar nichnesu Chachmei Yisrael. And then when Amud Shachar came, the Chachamim would say, Etzlai would come to David Melech. Amar Lai, and they would say to him, Adonenu, our master, Hamelech, the king, Amcha Yisrael tzrichin parnasa. Your nation needs you for parnasa. They don't have money. So Amar Lahem, L'chuva esparnizum, is work it out. The rich people give the poor people, donate some tzedakah. So Amar Lai, they said to him, Ena kaimitz misvi shel esari. A little kaimitz, which means a little amount of money, is not going to satisfy a lion. These people need a lot more money. Ve'ena bar mismala mechal yosai. And an empty pit is not going to be filled with holes. It's another analogy to show us that these people need more money. They can't just work it out with each other. So Amar Lahem, David Melech said a different answer to them. He said, L'chu upashtu yedechem bigedud. Miyad ya'aitzim. So he said, go and, get some spoils. Go to, let's battle and get some spoils. So miyad ya'aitzim achi teifel. Immediately they went to the advisor. And they asked him, is it advisable to start going in a war right now? Like, will we win? V'nim lachim the Sanhedrin, and then they would go to the Sanhedrin. B'sha'ol and b'Urim V'tumim, then they would ask the Urim V'tumim. This is the process they would do. So Rabbi Yosef, my crow, what does the pasuk mean when it says V'achrei teifel binu ben yoidai v'abi yaser b'sar tzivah l'melech yayav? This is the process they would do. There's a 3-step process. They went to the Achi Teifel, they went to the Sanhedrin, and they went to the Urim V'tumim. And this 3-step process is all learned from this one pasuk. Let's break it down. So, the first we start off by saying Achi Teifel, Ze Yayetz. V'chinu Oimer, V'atzas Achi Teifel asher yatz b'yam mehem, kasher yishal b'dvar ha'elokim. So therefore we know that this was the man that they went to ask advice as to whether or not they should battle. But no, Ben Yehoiada is a Sanhedrin. That was a Sanhedrin. Aviasar, and Aviasar, the next part of the pasuk, Elu Urim V'tumim. This was referring to the Urim V'tumim. V'cheinu Oimer. It's interesting that they abbreviated V'cheinu Oimer before and not here. It's not something that's generally abbreviated in shas. But anyway, V'cheinu Oimer. So it says, Ubenihu Ben Yehoiadai ala karasi ve'ala palasi. So therefore we see that he was Urim V'tumim. How do we know from this pasuk? V'lam b'nikra shamam karasi upalasi. Why is it called these two names? Karasi shekarsim divreihem. Karasi because he gave them sharp words. Karasi means to cut, but he gave them sharp words. Palasi shemifo alam b'divreihem. He gave them wondrous words. So he gave them incredible. He told them incredible things. And then afterwards they would go to battle. So that was his solution. That was David Melech's solution. Go get some spoils. Amar Yitzchak bar Ada, Amar La. So Amar Yitzchak bar Ada, and some say it was Amar Yitzchak Berei, the Rav Edi, the Rav Edi. So Mikra, what's the pasuk that tells us that David would get up as a result of this harp? That this harp woke him up. So it says, Ayra Kvadi, awake my glory. Ayra Hanevel V'chinar, awake my harp. Ira Shachar, and I awoke the night. Right, instead of wake the morning. I'm sorry. Instead of the morning waking him up, he would wake the morning. David Melech was, like we said, always up or halfway up, whatever you want to call it. So therefore, we see the famous story about David Melech's harp. That is the way he woke up. There are a couple other answers as to how David Melech knew when Chatzos was, and Moshe Rabbeinu didn't. But we will get to that next time. So that's great, everyone. We got through two blot. The first week complete, but as Hashem, many more. And as I put on the description to the link to the podcast, I now have a WhatsApp that everyone can reach out to if they need. The number will be in both the description to the podcast and the description to each individual episode. Okay, so we will stop there at the top of Daled Amud Aleph.